Hello everyone, my name is Roya, and today I'm coming to you with the books that I read in the first half of November. I did have a really good reading month. Most of these books were really, really good. I'm gonna actually go in the order of how, best book to least good book and all of that, pretty much, kind of, because that happens to be almost how they were arranged in the pile next to me. So I'll just start with my favorite book of the year, in fact, The Daughters of Izdihar by Hadir Elsbai. This is an incredible book about two different women who get involved in a women's rights group called the Daughters of Izdihar. And this was incredible. Basically, both of our main characters are such strong women and very likable, and the story was so gripping, and the entire book was such a good commentary on how hard women have to fight for basic rights and the multitude of humiliations women have to endure every day, and the comments that women get every day of assuming that they're lesser than men, all of that. And this whole book was beautiful, so please read it, and I did already post a full review of this book, so you can check it out for more of my thoughts. Stone Blind by Natalie Haynes. This is a Greek mythology retelling about Medusa, told from, basically the point of view that Medusa is completely innocent. She did not want to turn anybody to stone, all of that. And I thought that was beautiful. I have always had just a weird fear of Medusa ever since I was like 6, and I think reading this book helped me a lot through that, like thinking of Medusa as a protagonist rather than some kind of monster or whatever. And so this whole book does go through the entire origin of everything that happens. So it goes through like Athena's origin story, since she's the one who turns Medusa into a gorgon, and it goes through the whole story of Perseus and his mother and how he needs the head of a gorgon in order to save his mother from having to marry some evil king guy. And then it goes through Andromeda, who Perseus then uses the head of Medusa to save, and all of that. And so I thought this was such a good book. I could barely put it down. It was so incredible. The only thing that I was not so sure about with it was the fact that it alternates points of view completely outside of the timeline. So it'll go back and forth between like Medusa, Athena, Perseus, and Andromeda and such, and Perseus's mother Danae, and all of that, and like some other people too. Basically interchangeably, regardless of where they actually fall on the time frame. So I kind of thought, so at first I was kind of like, wait, Medusa was born before Athena was? Like, I don't know about that. But no, pretty soon I realized, like, no, it's completely not within the time frame, the actual timeline at all. So I thought there could have been a better way to do that. But otherwise, this book was so good. Some Desperate Glory by Emily Tesh. This is a sci-fi, a queer sci-fi, about a girl who is living on basically an army base type of thing after the destruction of Earth, and she has been raised as a soldier to basically everyone there is a soldier. They basically are told, like, hey, you're trying to get revenge for Earth, essentially. But then one day her brother gets sent on basically a suicide mission, and she gets sent to be a like birth mother, essentially, because they think that since she's such a good soldier, she would be better off like birthing more people who would become soldiers, which is such BS, because of course we know that that's not how genetics work, and that's just really stupid. So she really does not want to do that, because of course having to give birth over and over again is actually more dangerous than going and fighting. She decides to show them and go to save her brother, and what she finds when she goes to save her brother is basically unravels everything that she thought she believed. And so this was a really good book. I really, really liked it. I thought it started off better than it finished necessarily, because after a certain point it started getting really draggy, because she basically goes to like an alternate timeline for no real reason. Like, it didn't really add anything, except to show that even if she saves Earth, the same thing actually does still happen eventually, and all of that. But like overall, it was just a lot of stuff in there that I didn't think really needed to be in there. But overall, I really enjoyed this book. Ithaca by Claire North. This is about Penelope still on Ithaca and the things that she and the women who were left behind have to face. And I really liked this because it was kind of like, you know, it had the vibe of as if you're reading the Odyssey, but from Penelope's point of view. Like, it was, it kind of had the tone as if you're actually reading a real, like, Greek text, but with today's kind of narration style. And so I did really like that about it. I did kind of think that, you know, it could have had a little bit more character depth to it, but overall, I really liked it. The Frugal Wizard's Handbook for Surviving Medieval England by Brandon Sanderson. I borrowed this from a friend. This is about a guy who ends up in an alternate dimension where he's basically not really time traveled, but he's in kind of a dimension where it looks like the Norse folks took over England. And he has no memory of how he got there or anything at all. He basically has a handbook of instructions that says what he's done, that he's gone to an alternate dimension, with some kind of guidelines on, you know, this is how this works and blah, blah, blah. But he doesn't really remember, you know, clearly he only has the clothes on his back. So clearly this was done very quickly. And then he eventually starts remembering stuff about who he is, and then figures out, based on what someone else tells him, that one of his friends who he worked with is actually there in the same dimension, which shouldn't be possible. And this was just so good and so weird. And I really thought it could have used more character depth, like I think of a lot of books. But overall, I really enjoyed it. Rosemary and Rue by Sean McGuire. This is the first book in the October Day series, which is an urban fantasy with fae. I enjoyed this, but I thought that basically it's the first in a series, but it literally reads like it's the 17th in a series or something. There's a lot of backstory in here that I feel like, even though we're told what it is, we're missing. A lot more stuff happens before the story even starts than actually in the story. And we get very little of it in any kind of actual flashback. So then when the surprise villain is shown to be the villain, and I already don't like the surprise villain trope very much. It really annoys me. That's something that should have, you know, hit us differently had we, you know, had this not been the first in the series, had we actually been through all that other stuff before the story started with these characters. So I thought that that was just so weird and so annoying. But overall, I did really enjoy reading this. These Deathless Shores by P.H. Lowe. This was my least favorite book of the month, which is really sad because this was totally a 5-star prediction and it barely made 3 stars. So this book tells the story of a former lost boy who grew up, so Peter Pan kicked her out, and then she basically returns to get revenge on Peter Pan and essentially becomes Captain Hook. So this was a really disappointing read. I really liked the writing. I thought the writing was great. I really liked the idea, but nothing, you know, there was a lot more that could have been done with it. I liked that our main characters were Asian and all of that. Like, I thought that was great, but that's all that I liked about it. The whole story itself just made absolutely no sense after all. So basically our main character and her best friend encounter Peter by accident because he loses his shadow. How many times does Peter lose his shadow? Like, it's the exact same way he meets Wendy and folks. So I don't know. So that just felt like, why? You know, that there could have been so much more creativity there. So our main character uses Tinkerbell's, you know, Stardust, Fairy Dust magic stuff to make herself kind of look more like her friend so that she can pass them off as twins, so that people don't start realizing that she's a girl and all of that, so that she can join the Lost Boys and not just become their cleaning their maid or something. I don't know. So and then she happens to be missing a hand just from birth, basically, and so she glamours herself a hand and all of that, so none of them ever know that she doesn't have a hand. And that a lot of that could have been like a really good commentary on kind of like the difference between, you know, how women are treated and all that stuff, or how people with disabilities are treated, but it never goes into that. And then there were a lot of plot holes. So basically, they go to Peter Pan's island from the time they're 8 until they're about 13. And then we know that they go back to their families afterwards. And we see them with their families afterwards in flashback and everything. But there's never any kind of, you know, we never find out what their family's reactions were to them being missing. Like, nothing like that at all. Like, if anything, you know, it almost reads as if they show back up at home and their family's just like, oh, hi, you're home. As if that's not weird. And then the main character does have a sister, a little sister who later on went to join the Lost Boys. And so when our main characters go back to the island to get revenge on Peter Pan and she is still there, she's still a Lost Boy, our main character is just like, oh, you're here, like, as if that's not weird. Like, where's the actual reaction that somebody would have in any of these situations? I don't know. And then additionally, there's another guy who she and her best friend get to fly them to the island, and he ends up separated from them and all that stuff. And his entire part of this story is not significant in the least. Like, there are point of view chapters of just him on the island that add absolutely nothing, and that never becomes a thing that's significant at all. And then also, the story of Peter Pan does exist in this story. So our main characters have read Peter Pan before they actually have met Peter Pan, so they know who he is. And that just creates more plot holes, because then you know, presumably Captain Hook already existed. And then, so then why, you know, it just doesn't make any sense for that to have been the case. I don't know why this necessarily had to be told in modern day necessarily, because it didn't really do anything different. It could have been in any time period. I also thought we were going to get a Peter Pan origin story of some kind, but we didn't. It was literally almost setting it up that way to make there be an actual reason why Peter Pan doesn't grow up and why he's like evil in this story, and why he's like a bitter little boy. But we don't actually get that. We just get like one sentence about how when he ran away, his mother forgot about him. That's like all we get. And so overall, this book was just so disappointing, and I'm so sad. So anyway, those are the books that I read in the first half of November. Please let me know if you have any thoughts on any of these, if you've read any of these, and I will see you very soon with a new video. Thank you so much for watching. Bye!